All right, hey, I'm T. This is my video diary where I'm recording my progress in learning C Sharp over the course of a year. This is video diary number 3. So if you don't have context, if you haven't gone back and watched the others, long story, very short, because my goal is to keep this video like really less than 10 minutes, but maybe less than 15. I tried learning C Sharp last July, in July of 2023, spent about a month really trying to learn it, hit a wall that I'm going to show you today, and quit for like 5 or 6 months. Then I came back. I started to learn SQL, got pretty comfortable writing queries and joins, at least at a basic level. Switched to Python, got very comfortable writing simple applications in Python. Started to learn the Pygame and the tkinter libraries. Started to build my own applications. And then I decided, you know what? I need to go back and I need to at least see if I can do C Sharp at this point. If I can follow along better with what I was learning, because it was so discouraging to have bounced off a wall. My job is professional learning. I am a teacher, I'm an instructional coach, and for me to have not been able to coach my way through that process more effectively felt like I had let myself down, felt like I didn't know what I was doing, so this has kind of been a white whale for me for like a year. The steps of learning SQL and Python and then C Sharp in that sequence, that was a deliberate coaching strategy that I applied to myself. Start with something very simple, start to build confidence, move to something more complicated, build confidence, and then attack the actual problem. So I've been spending, this is my 4th week, I think, working on C Sharp, like pretty effectively. I switched over, I don't know if it was the last week of June or if it was the first week of July. So it's either the 3rd or the 4th week that I've been doing this. I started the video diaries pretty quickly thereafter. But the idea here is to chart my progress across the course of the year, talk about what I'm struggling with, document my successes, be honest about the developmental curve. You know, I'm coming from a place of I did some programming in high school. I can read HTML pretty well. I don't know any CSS though. I bounced off that. Java scared the hell out of me when I was 18. So I'm not coming from a place of high prior experience, but kind of moderate to low level prior experience. So if you're in that place and you want to follow along with the developmental curve with me, you can subscribe or whatever. But this is primarily for me, so in a year I can sit back and watch some of these diaries and see how far I was able to take the ball in the 52 weeks. So again, this is week 3. What you're looking at here in the background is my first individual application that I'm building for my day job. So like I said, I'm a teacher, I'm an instructional coach, and one of the things that we do is we give kids dibbles in order to track their reading and sentence level comprehension, reading fluency, sentence level comprehension. It's 2 different components, which you can see here. We've got the ORF and we've got Maze. ORF is oral reading fluency. There are a bunch of different ways that we can use those numbers. We can look at what's the difference between the total number of words that a kid read and the total words correct in order to calculate an error rate or a success rate, depending on how pessimistic you want to be. We can also look at their growth over weeks. We can look at the types of errors that they're making, which is beyond the scope of this particular program, but it is something that I coach people through how to do. How do we actually use the errors to inform and refine and direct our instruction? And with Maze as well, Maze is looking at, can kids cohere meaning from the sentence level? And we can do similar things with that. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to build an app with a couple different features, which are charted here in my comments, my to-dos. I need to calculate the ORF accuracy rate by subtracting corrected words per minute from total read. That's easy. That's actually a routine calculation that we just do with the calculator on the side. But I thought, let's make it right into the application. It's routine. Let's automate it a little bit. I wanted to calculate the growth rates between 2 subsequent tests. That's something we don't do as often, and I've noticed some people have struggled with that particular calculation because of the different ways that we use it when we're helping special ed teachers with IEPs. I need to calculate the Maze adjusted score. That calculation is just a pain in the rear end. I do it often enough that I don't even need to think about it. I can do it in my head. But there are teachers who only do it maybe once every 10 weeks or once every 20 weeks, and so they need to be reminded of it. Well, what if I just roll it into my little console app, right? And then calculating the composite score, and that's not a formula that I know off the top of my head. It's one that I almost never have to interact with, but for reporting on state documents, sometimes we need to use composite score. So I thought this is a perfect place to put in this much more tricky, complicated score. And then I need to have an option to quit, which is hilariously missing from this. So that's just the menu, right? I've got the whole menu set up except this. That's not true. And I need to utilize some void methods to print back information. I chose void just because right now I'm not carrying the variables around in the program. I'm just going to use void methods to spit back a teacher-friendly English syntax data chunk. So the tildes mark out things that I've done. So I already have the void methods for the ORF accuracy by taking in two numbers, and I have a void method for calculating the distance between the two probes, or I guess it's the growth, not the distance. And then I came back and I added this feature on my own, accounting for the weeks between probes, because the kids who we don't think have any reading issues, they only do this 3 times a year. We have 40 weeks in a year, so they have, 16 weeks between them? 15, 16 weeks between them? No, that can't be right. I don't want to do math. 13 weeks between them. The kids who we do suspect have differing levels of reading concern or deficit, they might do them every other month, depending on the level of service they receive, or if they're getting an active intervention, they might be getting it every month. And if they're identified with an IEP as having a specific reading disability, we might be giving them this probe every 3 weeks. So the teacher may need to be able to see the growth rate and account for the distance between them. And I can do that by giving them a bunch of options, or I can simply add it into the formula, and that's what I did. So I have this automatically running, but it gives the user the opportunity to account for the probes if they want. And if they default to no, then it just rolls it. You can't even see it in the equation. It was very simple to implement once I realized I could do it formulatically. I don't know. Geez, I have a master's in literacy. And then I need to be able to loop the menu effectively and quit on quit or queue. So there's a couple different things that I'm doing in this application, which I will run it here in a second. But this is basically the body. I've got my while loop, which is while running as my flag. I've got string read input gets used over and over again throughout the application. It gets used and overwritten, used and overwritten, because I'm not carrying information. I'm not storing reading data throughout the app. Once it's put in and worked with, it's then forgotten. There's a couple reasons I chose to do that for now, but mostly it's not a GUI app, it's a console app. So there's not really a way to track and display information. I'm not adding it to arrays at this point, although I'm thinking about doing that. And also, if it's immediately deleted from the memory, that does preserve personal identifying information, which is one of my concerns building educational apps, is I need to be very cognizant of personally identifying information. So there's an if. Basically, I'm just checking to make sure you're not putting in a null or empty space. And then I'm using switch cases, which I really enjoy using switch cases to set up how the program should handle each thing. So it takes in the information it needs and then feeds them into a void method, and then it will spit it back out, breaks it, kicks you back to the main menu. Same thing for 2, but you can see case 3 and 4, I haven't gotten to them yet. They're just coming soon. Here's my quit, sets my flag to false, breaks it, and then it gets you out of the program very efficiently. And then if you type in something that is not recognized, it gives you the menu again. Very easy. This whole thing took me maybe 40 minutes to write, and I did a little bit of tinkering with some bugs that I had inadvertently introduced. But you can see it's pretty clean, I think. I don't know how to use classes right now. That's something that's throwing me. Is in Python I was getting used to using classes and importing files. In this case, everything is in this one big old chunk of code over here, and I know that's suboptimal, but I want to practice how all these things flow together so that when I get to classes in a couple weeks, maybe, I'll be able to start to implement it without having to also be practicing this stuff. So it's got a while loop, it's got a do while loop. I don't have any for loops running yet, although when I introduce arrays, which I think I'm going to have to do, there'll be some for loops in there as well. And then I've got my 2 void methods. They're very simple. They're parsing from the strings, and then they spit it back out in a formatted string after running this formula. And then the growth calculator. This is where it got a little bit more complicated, but basically, do you want to account for growth over weeks, yes or no? And then based on that, it will feed in either the default division by 1, so it has no effect on the output, or it'll feed in the number that you decide to give it. There are ways to crash this application. I realize it's not perfect, but I want to run it really quickly and show, because this is, again, the C# diary for me, myself, and I. Whoop, .net build, just to make sure that my changes have taken effect. .net run. And I see I'm at 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep it fairly short, but I go right in. Please input total words read. We'll say it was 120 and 117 for the correct words. And I get a teacher-friendly or parent-friendly statement here. The student read a total of 120, accurately read 117. Total errors 3, and this is the big one, 97.5% accuracy. We're looking for that level. 96% is considered on grade level. And then the user has the option to clear the console. So in this case, I might be a teacher who wants to have some of these to reference. I'm going to say no, I don't want to clear the console. But I do want to calculate the growth rate between their two dibbles or probes. So maybe there's a bug. I got to fix that where it clears it at the beginning. I think I know why it does that. So I want to input the first score. Let's say at the beginning of the year, I read 105 words, and now I read 120. That was the recent one, right? Do I want to account for growth over weeks? Yes. If I say no, it just divides the weeks between them by 1. So it doesn't change the formula. But if I say yes, I can put in how many probes. And this is important based on the levels of service that I explained earlier. We're going to assume this is a tier 2 kid, so there's 4 weeks between each probe. Now it says the student improved by 3.75 between the 2 probes. That can be very useful to teachers. It also gives the gross growth, which is 15. That's easy to figure out, but otherwise you might have to pull up a calculator and do this. Well, the application does it for you. So the student improved by 3.75. Sometimes we have IEP goals that are written saying that between the 2 weeks they should be growing an average of like 1.5 words. You might feel one way about that, might feel another way about that, but that's how it's written, and we do have to report on it. So there it is. 3 and 4 just give the same thing. I can type Q to quit, and that's it. That's my Dibble SketchUp app as it's written right now, with maybe an hour total time working on it. This is going to be the focus for me for the next week. I want to get options 3 and 4 going. There's a couple of bugs that I need to work out, some data validation stuff. But it's similar to the project that I'm also working on the side with Learn.Microsoft, which has menus and is a console app like this. But I really wanted to do this myself to build confidence, practice things that are challenging, and prepare myself for that object-oriented programming that I know is coming up. Because I got 3 minutes to get through this, I broke through the wall in this Ultimate C# Masterclass course. This is the course that made me quit C# a year ago because I was not prepared. It's not her, it's just I was not prepared to learn. I didn't have the fundamentals that I thought I did, and then I blitzed through all this basic stuff instead of taking my time and taking notes and practicing and building on my own. I just raced through it thinking it would, accumulate together, and it didn't. And I hit these 2 exercises that I'm going to show you that I solved this one without even thinking about it. I was like, calculate the sum of the numbers between, oh, okay, and I built this, and then I looked, because I was like, where's the challenging one? I built it, I passed it on like the 2nd or 3rd try because I forgot curly braces, and then I realized, oh wait, this was the beginning of the end. I hit this, I could not solve it, and I got so discouraged that I took like a week or 2 off, and then I came back, I worked through some of these. This one, the repeating character, was really hard, but I was able to do it, and then I hit the factorial one, and I quit. I was like, I don't know where numbers coming from. I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. I don't know why this is there. I don't know how this works. I don't know where it's returning to. And I realized I was way in over my head. I had no idea. So I didn't solve this one on my own, but I can read it on my own. And that is a huge jump over where I was last year. If I'm being totally honest, I got totally lost with her explanation over here, trying to figure out how to code this. I don't know why this is how she introduced it. I don't like that this is how she introduced it. I think this is really clumsy. But I got pretty close. I was able to solve 2 of the 4 with running my own like N formula here. But the hints are not great. This is one of the weaker exercises so far in the course, and I think it's an unfair wall for people because you're doing something mathematically that you may not be familiar with, while also dealing with a for loop, which she doesn't provide a lot of training on. You really need to go outside and seek outside resources. But that's neither here nor there, because I can read it, and I'm going to explain really quickly with the couple minutes that are left to me here what it's doing so that I have a record of the fact that I can do this, because this made me into a crybaby last year. Not literally, but it made me butthurt. So what's happening is I have a public static int method called factorial. It takes in one parameter number that has to be an integer. I have set up a variable called result because that's what she says over here somewhere. So the result, right? That part I got on my own. Set up a result. It needs to be equal to 1 because anything times 0 is 0, and then you just end up in this loop where you can't break out of the 0. That I got to on my own, and then you need a for loop, and the for loop is going, okay, starting with integer 1, not 0, because again, I'm multiplying by 0 thing, while I is less than or equal to the number you've passed in, number, then do this, multiply result times the current integer I, and then increment I by 1. That's all it does. So if I start with 1 and 1, right, I've got result is 1, I is less than number, presumably. I'm going to multiply the result 1 times I, which is 1. Cool. Nothing happens. Then I'm going to increment I by 1, and now I've got 2. So now I've got 1 times 2. I get 2. Result becomes 2. Increment I by 1, I get 3. Now I've got 2 times 3, I get 6, and so forth until I is equal to whatever number is. I can't see what number is because of the way that this is set up. So I have to trust that the formula is going to work. It works. I can read it. That's a huge step forward. And I was able to solve the other one totally on my own. Was it a little bit of a bummer that I couldn't solve the factorial thing on my own? A little bit. But the fact that I could read it excited me. And then I ended up working on my program. So I'm making progress. I'm almost into arrays with her course, which is great because in the Learn.Microsoft thing, I was really struggling, not with the concept of arrays, but with multi-dimensional arrays. So I clearly need to work on that a little bit. But this video is already getting pretty long. It's been a busy week. We had backyard camping, we had swim lessons, we had working out at the gym again finally, we've had running and all sorts of stuff with the girls. So I'm trying to reorient the video log schedule to drop on Sundays because that's usually when I have time. But Monday is when it actually happened because yesterday was pretty busy. So that's it. It's 18 minutes. I'm cutting it there. I'll see you again in a week when I hopefully know more and can do more.